Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Final Whistle. I'm your host Leia, and tonight we unpack what can only be described as a European implosion. Real Madrid's 2-1 defeat at home to Arsenal. If you're a Madridista, take a seat, grab a coffee, and maybe a tissue. If you're a Gooner, I know you've already hit replay on Martinelli's goal like 46 times. Don't worry, we're talking about it. Let's get straight to it. Madrid lost 5-1 on aggregate, not even close. And let's be honest, after that first leg at the Emirates, it felt like the writing was already on the wall. Arsenal outplayed, outran, and outclassed Madrid. But still, we all thought, it's Madrid at the Bernabeu, they've done crazier things. Instead, what we saw was Arsenal walking in like they owned the place. High press, compact lines, Odegaard running the show like he still had the keys from his loan spell, and Bukayo Saka, that goal in the 17th minute was so clean, it could have passed a VR exam with honors. You could hear a pin drop in the Bernabeu after that strike. And it wasn't because people were checking their phones, it was because the entire stadium was stunned. Madrid looked flat. Modric and Kroos, two absolute legends, were doing their best, but Arsenal's midfield made them look vintage. Not vintage like wine, vintage like cassette tapes. You know, the kind you find in your dad's attic next to the VHS tapes labeled Family Vacation 1994. Let's not ignore how disconnected Madrid were between the lines. The midfield was too slow to transition, and the attack was waiting for service that never came. It felt like a band where each musician was playing a different song. Ancelotti tried to adjust. Camavinga came on, Rodrigo got a few sprints in, Joselu managed a goal that gave the Bernabeu a flicker of hope. For about 5 minutes the crowd believed again, but that hope lasted about as long as a Snapchat story, because Martinelli, fresh off the bench, ended the party in stoppage time. He ran past Carvajal like he had cheat codes, and then calmly tucked it away. 2-1. Game set, Arteta. Let's talk Mbappe. People expected fireworks. We got sparkles, maybe. Arsenal had him on lockdown like he was carrying secrets from MI6. Saliba and Gabriel double-teamed him all night like they were trying to win a WWE tag team belt. He barely touched the ball, and when he did, it was usually followed by a turnover. And can we just say it? Mbappe might need to rethink his role. This isn't PSG anymore. The expectations are higher, the stage is bigger, and in nights like these you can't afford to disappear. He needs to become the player that changes games, not just the one we expect to. It wasn't just him though. Vinicius tried, but he was double-teamed so often he probably thought he was back in a five-a-side futsal match. The effort was there, but the support? Not so much. Rodrigo flashed moments, but never looked like a real threat. And Joselu, let's just say, the fact that he's leading the line for Madrid in a Champions League knockout game is more a statement on the transfer policy than on Joselu himself. Defensively, Madrid were vulnerable. Carvajal looked a step behind. Nacho gave effort, but Arsenal exploited the spaces. Lunin, not his best night. Can't blame it all on him, but let's just say Courtois was missed more than Wi-Fi in a blackout. Every time Arsenal got near the box, there was panic. Rudiger was decent, but he couldn't do it alone. And then there's the bench. When you look at Madrid's subs, it doesn't scream fear. That used to be their strength. Game changers waiting to come in. Now, it feels like a roll of the dice. On the other side, Arsenal looked mature, poised, calm. They didn't just beat Madrid, they managed the game like pros. Arteta deserves credit. He set up his team perfectly. Odegaard was majestic. Rice, like a bulldozer with elegance. Saliba, an absolute wall. Ramsdale, solid, smart, and composed under pressure. Saka's positioning, Trossard's energy, the discipline of Zinchenko, it all clicked. Arsenal played like a side that's been here before. That's the scariest part. This was a statement of arrival, not luck. One underrated part of Arsenal's win was their mentality. You go to the Bernabeu with a 3-0 lead, you might think you can just defend and hope for the best. But Arsenal didn't sit back. They came to play. That takes guts. that takes maturity. And that, my friends, is what champions are made of. So what's next for Madrid? Big decisions, midfield regeneration, defensive depth, and a system that doesn't leave Mbappé isolated like he's on a solo mission in outer space. The club needs to decide, are they building for the future or trying to squeeze the last drops out of an aging core? Because right now it looks like they're doing both, and failing at both. And Ancelotti, love the man, but this might be the end of the road at Madrid. Brazil's calling, and the Bernabeu may need fresh energy. The players looked like they'd heard the same halftime speech one too many times. Before we blow the final whistle, let me throw my hat into the ring. Now that we know the 4 semi-finalists, Arsenal versus PSG and Barcelona versus Inter Milan, we can start to paint a clearer picture. All 4 teams have shown grit, quality, and consistency. Let's start with Arsenal. They just dismantled Real Madrid, arguably the most experienced team in this competition. That wasn't a fluke. Arteta has built a team that's young, hungry, and disciplined. They'll be up against PSG, who have the firepower of Mbappé, Dembélé, and a midfield that's finally found balance. But Arsenal's defensive organization and their ability to manage big moments might just give them the edge. On the other side of the bracket, Barcelona face Inter Milan. Barca have been reborn under Xavi. Young talents like Lamine Yamal are making waves, and Lewandowski is still delivering when it matters. But Inter? They just took out Bayern Munich. They're solid, experienced, and hard to break down. Simone Inzaghi has built a machine. So, who do I think takes it all? It's tight. But based on current form and tactical cohesion, my pick is Arsenal. They've knocked out Real Madrid with maturity, and they look like they believe it's finally their time. If they get past PSG, which won't be easy, I think they have the tools to beat either Barcelona or Inter in the final. Alright folks, that's it for today's whistle. We laughed, we cried, we questioned everything from formations to haircuts. If you enjoyed this episode, if you laughed, learned, or yelled at your speaker, I've done my job. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, drop your thoughts in the comments. Who should take over Madrid? Is Arsenal the new force in Europe? Was this just a bad day, or a sign of something deeper? I'm Leia, and this was the final whistle. Until next time, stay passionate, stay loud, and as always, keep the game alive.